Reddit story. Not every betrayal is loud. Some of them happen in whispers, in stolen glances, in messages sent late at night when they think you're not watching. Tonight's story isn't about a dramatic affair or a big confrontation. It's about the quiet kind of betrayal, the one that starts with laughter over a screen and ends with silence across a dinner table. This is the story of Brooke, a young woman from Austin who thought she knew her fiancé better than anyone. 6 years together. A lifetime of memories. A future they had already started building. But sometimes love blinds us to the small cracks forming underneath. Tonight's story will remind you, trust isn't lost in one big moment. It's lost message by message, secret by secret. Until one day, you realize you're holding on to a version of someone who no longer exists. Grab a drink. Find a quiet place. Because tonight's story will leave you wondering, how well do we ever really know the people we love? Brooke and Alex had the kind of relationship people envied. 6 years together, full of late-night talks about the future, inside jokes no one else understood, dreams built carefully, lovingly over time. When Alex got his new job at a tech company, Brooke was proud. New opportunities, new challenges. She believed in him, and when he mentioned a new coworker, Emily, it didn't even register as a red flag. She's just part of the team, he had said. But slowly, little things started to change. Alex smiling at his phone just a little too long, joking about things Brooke didn't understand. Inside jokes she wasn't part of. It's just work stuff, he reassured her, and Brooke wanted to believe him. Because that's what love does, doesn't it? It chooses to trust, even when there's a tiny voice inside whispering that something doesn't feel right. Then one night, Alex came home late again. He dropped his laptop on the couch and went to take a shower. Brooke wasn't snooping. She wasn't looking for anything. But when she sat down next to his laptop, the screen was still glowing. Messages open. Conversations she wasn't meant to see. Hundreds of texts between Alex and Emily. Flirty banter. Late-night confessions. Sentences that made Brooke's stomach twist into knots. Wish you were here. You get me in a way no one else does. I can't stop thinking about you. Brooke sat there for what felt like hours, scrolling, watching her future collapse one message at a time. And the worst part, there was no physical betrayal yet. But emotionally, Alex had already left. When he walked back into the room, towel slung over his shoulder, Brooke didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply looked him in the eyes and said, "I read the messages." Alex froze. In that moment, she saw everything she needed to see. The man she thought she would marry, reduced to silence. No excuses, no explanations. Just the heavy, undeniable truth hanging between them. Sometimes betrayal isn't about what they do with someone else. It's about what they stop doing with you. The honesty, the respect, the loyalty. That night, Brooke packed her things, left behind the plans they had made. The promises whispered under fairy lights. The future that no longer belonged to both of them. Because sometimes, the most heartbreaking endings are the ones that don't need to be explained. They're written in silence. Brooke's story isn't just about betrayal. It's about the slow erosion of trust. A trust built over years and destroyed, message by message. We often think of betrayal as something loud, as something we can point to and say, "There." That's where it broke. But real betrayal often happens in silence, in little choices, in moments when someone stops choosing you, even while they're still sitting next to you. Emotional cheating cuts just as deeply, sometimes even more, than physical betrayal. Because it's not about what they did with someone else. It's about what they stopped doing with you, stopped confiding in you, stopped being real with you, stopped letting you be their person. Brooke's strength wasn't in confronting Alex with rage. It was in her silence, in the quiet way she chose herself, the moment she realized he had already left her emotionally. And that's the lesson here. Sometimes closure doesn't come with shouting or apologies. Sometimes closure is simply standing up, packing your things, and walking away from a love that stopped choosing you long before you even realized it. When Brooke's story was shared, It struck a deep chord with so many people. Because trust isn't just broken by actions, sometimes it's broken by silence. Let's take a look at some of the most powerful comments from Reddit. Comment. 2 words. Hurt. 2 emotional cheating is real. If you're giving parts of yourself to someone else that should belong to your partner, you're already gone past 3K likes. Exactly. Betrayal isn't just about what happens physically, it's about where you let your heart go. Comment 2. You quiet betrayals. It's the laughing at the phone, the inside jokes you're not part of. That's how you start realizing you're already on the outside. 7K likes. So true. Sometimes the loneliest moments are when you're still standing right next to them. Comment 3. Chose myself. Brooke's strength wasn't in fighting for someone who gave up. It was in choosing herself without asking for permission. 31K likes. Beautifully said. Real power is knowing when to stop fighting for someone who stopped choosing you. Comment 4. You broken by silence. Sometimes the loudest betrayals are silent. No shouting, just absence where love used to be. 9K likes. Exactly. Silence can scream louder than any fight ever could. Comment. Healing is leaving. Closure doesn't always come with answers. Sometimes it's just the moment you realize you deserve peace more than you deserve an apology. 5K likes. Absolutely. Peace is a gift we give ourselves the day we stop needing explanations to move forward. Reading these comments reminds us betrayal doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers through small cracks in the foundation until one day you realize the house you were building together isn't yours anymore. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a moment when trust was broken? Not by what someone did, but by what they stopped being. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might be the strength someone else needs today. She wanted closure, but I found the truth. Emotional Reddit story. Closure. It's a word we hear so often. Whispered at the end of relationships. Promised like a final gift to ease the pain. But what if closure isn't really about healing the person you hurt? What if it's just a way to clean your own conscience, to make yourself feel better? Even as you reopen wounds that were finally starting to heal. Tonight's story isn't about anger. It's not about betrayal in the way you might expect. It's about something quieter, something that happens long after the goodbye. When the person who broke your heart comes back, not to fix it, but to make sure they don't feel guilty walking away. This is the story of Ethan, a young man from Portland who thought he had found peace after losing someone he once loved deeply. But sometimes, closure doesn't come from the conversations you have with them. It comes from the quiet decision to keep walking. Even when they try to pull you back for one last moment, grab a drink. Find a quiet spot. Because tonight's story will remind you, some chapters aren't meant to be reopened. No matter how politely they knock, Ethan and Natalie spent nearly 5 years together. 5 years of movie nights, road trips, whispered dreams about a shared future. Their love wasn't the explosive kind. It was steady, reliable. But sometimes even steady love can start to crack in places you don't notice at first. Natalie grew restless. She started talking about needing space, needing time to find herself. There was no dramatic betrayal, no terrible argument, just a slow, aching drift. Until one day, she packed her bags and left the life they had built together. Ethan was heartbroken, but he respected her decision. He grieved. He healed. Slowly, he began stitching together a new version of himself, one not defined by the life he had planned with someone else. Then out of nowhere, Natalie texted him, "Hey, I feel like we never really got closure. Can we meet, John?" Ethan hesitated. Every part of him that had fought so hard to move on knew this might not be a good idea. But a part of him, the old part, still cared, still wanted to believe in the good they had shared. They agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown. When Ethan walked in, he barely recognized her. Natalie was glowing lighter, freer. They exchanged awkward smiles. Small talk about work, family life. And then she dropped the bomb, "I'm getting married." Ethan blinked, unsure if he heard her correctly. I didn't want you to find out from someone else," she added quickly. "I wanted to make sure you were okay." In that moment, Ethan realized the meeting wasn't about closure for both of them. It was about Natalie's guilt, about her needing to feel like the good person before she turned the final page. And strangely, Ethan didn't feel anger. He didn't feel devastation. He just felt done. Because sometimes closure isn't about conversations, apologies, or meetings at coffee shops. Sometimes closure is just the quiet realization that you're no longer waiting for someone else's permission to move on. Ethan smiled politely, wished her well, and walked away. Not because he was trying to be the bigger person, but because he realized he already was. Ethan's story reminds us of something powerful. Closure isn't a conversation. It's not a neatly tied bow at the end of a painful chapter. It's not something someone else can hand you across a coffee table. Real closure happens quietly. It's the moment you realize you don't need their explanations. You don't need their approval to move forward. Sometimes people ask for closure, not because they care about how you feel, but because they want to ease their own guilt. They want to leave the story cleanly, without feeling like the bad guy in someone else's memories. But true healing doesn't come from their apologies. True healing comes from choosing yourself, from recognizing that your peace is too valuable to reopen wounds that were already starting to scar over. Ethan didn't need Natalie's permission to move on. He didn't need her blessing. He just needed one thing: himself, his own strength, his own quiet acceptance that sometimes love ends, people change, and moving forward doesn't mean you didn't love them. It means you finally learned to love yourself more. When Ethan's story was shared, it hit a nerve with so many people. Because real closure isn't about the words they say. It's about the peace you choose for yourself. Let's take a look at some of the most heartfelt comments from Reddit. Comment 1. You closure. Personal closure isn't something they give you. It's something you find when you realize you don't need them anymore. 26, 9K likes. Exactly. True closure is silent. It happens deep inside long after they've left. Comment 2. You goodbye without anger. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to walk away without needing to explain why. 28. 2K likes. Beautifully said, you don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing your peace. Comment 3. You not for. For them. When they ask for closure, it's often about their guilt, not your healing. Ethan handled it with incredible grace. 30 of 5K likes. So true. Some meetings are more about their conscience than your heart. Comment Chapter 4. You healing hurts. The hardest part is realizing that not everyone comes back because they miss you. Some come back to fix their image in your story. 27 4K likes. And exactly, not every return is about love. Sometimes it's just about easing their guilt. Comment 5. Moving forward quietly, you don't need their validation to heal. You're the only closure you'll ever need. 31 likes. Absolutely, healing is an inside job, and Ethan showed us exactly how powerful that choice can be. These comments remind us, true closure isn't about getting the perfect goodbye. It's about finding the courage to keep writing your story, even after someone else has left the page. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to find closure all on your own? Share your story in the comments, because your voice might just be the light someone else needs tonight. We grew together until we grew apart. Emotional Reddit story. Not every love story ends with betrayal. Not every heartbreak is caused by lies or broken promises. Sometimes, love ends simply because two people who once fit perfectly together grow in different directions. Tonight's story isn't about anger. It's not about one person being right and the other being wrong. It's about something much quieter, much sadder. It's about the slow realization that sometimes, even when the love is real, it's not enough to keep two people on the same path. This is the story of Daniel, a young man from Denver who found a love that grew with him, shaped him, became part of him, until one day he realized that loving someone deeply doesn't always mean you're meant to stay forever. Grab your favorite drink. Find a quiet space, because tonight's story will remind you sometimes the bravest kind of love is the kind that lets go. Daniel met Claire when he was just 22, fresh out of college, wide-eyed, full of dreams too big for his small apartment. Claire was everything he wasn't. Fearless, adventurous, the kind of person who made you believe that anything was possible if you just jumped without looking. They fell fast. Nights filled with cheap takeout and big dreams, days spent chasing careers they didn't fully understand yet. They built a life together, not perfect, not polished, but real. For years it worked. They grew side by side, growing up through every missed opportunity, every late-night fight, every whispered apology. But as time passed, the dreams that once aligned started pulling them in different directions. Claire wanted to travel to explore new cities, start over again and again, never tied down by anything or anyone. Daniel wanted a home, a place to put down roots, a space to build a life steady enough for both of them. It wasn't one big fight. It wasn't a betrayal or a single moment you could point to and say, "That's when it ended." It was 1,000 little moments, conversations that drifted into silence, plans that were made separately, not together, smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes anymore. One evening, they found themselves sitting in their favorite diner, the same place where they had planned their future so many times before. Over coffee that had long gone cold, they looked at each other, and both knew no shouting, no anger, just two people who loved each other enough to admit that love wasn't enough to keep them together anymore. Daniel squeezed Claire's hand one last time. They cried. They promised to always root for each other, and then they walked away. Not because the love was gone, but because sometimes the bravest thing you can do for someone you love is to set them free. Daniel's story reminds us of a truth we rarely talk about. Sometimes love isn't lost because it dies. Sometimes it's lost because it grows, just in different directions. We like to believe that if love is strong enough, it can survive anything. Distance, change, time. But the truth is, sometimes two people can love each other with everything they have and still need different things to feel fulfilled. Claire needed adventure. Daniel needed roots, and neither of them was wrong. Neither of them was selfish. Sometimes love means accepting that what you want for your life isn't what the person you love wants for theirs. And the most heartbreaking part, it doesn't make the love any less real. Daniel and Claire's story isn't a failure. It's a testament to a different kind of courage. The courage to let go, not because you stopped loving, but because you loved enough to want the other person to be truly free. Real love isn't about holding on at all costs. Sometimes, the purest form of love is knowing when to say goodbye. When Daniel's story was shared, it resonated with so many people, because sometimes the hardest heartbreaks aren't caused by anger or betrayal, but simply by life pulling two people in different directions. Let's take a look at some of the most heartfelt comments from Reddit. Comment on you growing in different ways. Some relationships don't end because the love fades. They end because people grow. And sometimes that growth takes you down different paths. 27. Likes. Exactly, growth isn't always together, and that's one of the hardest lessons to learn. Comment 2. You still love, still. Let go. Letting go when you still love someone is one of the purest, most painful acts of love. 29. 1K likes. So true, it takes an incredible amount of strength to set someone free, not out of anger, but out of love. Comment 3. You not all loves stays. Realizing that loving someone doesn't mean you're meant to stay is such a heavy, heartbreaking truth. 26. 7K likes. Exactly. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to walk away with love still in your heart. Comment. Are you farewell? Without Blame. This story hurt because it's so real. No villains, no betrayal. Just two hearts trying to find their own way. 30. 3K likes. Beautifully said, not every goodbye has a bad guy. Sometimes it's just life. Comment. You love means freedom. Sometimes love means giving someone the freedom to chase the life they dream of, even if it doesn't include you. 3031s, 6K likes. Absolutely, real love isn't about possession. It's about wishing them happiness, even from afar. These comments remind us, true love isn't always about forever. Sometimes it's about showing up fully while you can, and letting go gracefully when you must. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to say goodbye to someone you still loved? Share your story in the comments. Your words could be the comfort someone else is looking for tonight.